everyone. Welcome to today's event for David Putnam's latest novel. Yay! As probably many of you already here know, he has had a long and storied career in law enforcement, and today we're here for his 9th installment, right? In the Bruno Johnson series. Today in conversation with him is mysterious Galaxy friend Matt Coyle. Yes, of course. For the 8th novel in his Rick Cahill series, Last Redemption. I'll go ahead and leave it to these gentlemen. If you have any questions later in the event, I will ping you all to ask questions. Same thing for you internet people, and I'll see you live.
Cool. Thank you. I think we're supposed to tilt this as we talk. It's at your level, but not mine. I'll speak up. Sorry, I'll speak. I'll throw my voice. You have a storied career in law enforcement. That's why you write fiction. All right, so all the folks out here pretty much know your background, but maybe some of the people who are watching us don't know your Bruno background. So give us a brief background on Bruno Johnson, and then where he is as this book opens up.
Thank you. Bruno Johnson is an ex-cop, ex-con who rescues children from toxic homes in South Central Los Angeles. He couldn't do it when he was a cop because there's too many rules and regulations. Now he goes outside the law to rescue the children. He continually, through each book, accumulates children that he's rescued. And right now he's hiding out in Costa Rica. And I think he's up to 13 children. The first 4 books are current day stories. And then the publisher said at the end of the 4th book, The Vanquished, I beat up Bruno pretty bad, shot him, and emotionally ruined him. And she said, I don't know how you're going to come back from that. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, maybe she's right. So I did 4 prequels. It started out as a trilogy, but I couldn't finish the story arc in 3, so it became a 4-book trilogy. Then I went back and started again at the beginning. So the Sinister is actually the book that follows Vanquished. It's 2 months after Vanquished ended, and it's back to current day.
Because I'm very prepared. You got me to questions that I was going to ask earlier, so I'm going to jump right on it. The kids, the children. So you say he's up to 13 now. What in his past, in his childhood maybe, made him a defender of children? Is there something psychological back there? Did somebody ask me?
No.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Bruno is very tight with his dad. His dad is a very patriarch kind of person, and he's very loyal to him. So I think he wants to give children the same chances that he had with his father, and that's kind of what I right.
So there's Bruno, was a cop, now he's kind of on the run, but he's got a friend in the FBI, or they've helped each other. Dan Chulak, pronouncing it right? Because I only read the book. So why is he important to Bruno?
Each one of my books is a snapshot of my career, and The Vanquished was the time when I was working criminal intelligence and tracking the Hells Angels. We actually had a surveillance set up on a pole camera at a hospital. I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this. A camera on a pole. It's
Sure.
They're complicated. It was pointed down the road at the Hells Angels, and we had an operation going, and I got to watch them in their natural environment for a number of weeks. So I wrote this book kind of with that information. Dan Chulak was the deputy, he was a FBI agent that Bruno worked with in The Vanquished. But he wasn't then. But the case that he worked with in the Vanquished made his career, so he got promoted. So Chulak actually owes him, and Bruno wasn't going to go back and ask him for the favor, but he ended up having to. No, the director acted him for asking for another favor, big favor. Yeah. well, it's kind of a, what do you call it, a spoiler? No, the first chapter. Bruno's in a high rent hotel in Glendale. He'd only intended to stay there for 4 days, but he got shot and he was recuperating. I think he was in there for 2 months, and the bill was in the thousands of dollars. And it was the day he was packing to leave to go back to Costa Rica when there's a knock at the door, and it's Chulak, and he has a favor to ask Bruno.
Okay, so when you get to page 4, you'll understand. There are some other spoilers that I won't say. So, this is, you mentioned this is now 5 present day, more or less, 4 prequels. And this is Bruno at his most vulnerable, I would say physically as well as emotionally. Right. And why did you choose to do that for this book? And is that why, for both reasons, for both the physical and the emotional, is that why you chose to have it in only a couple months after the last book? In time, you know, the period of time.
Well, part of that issue is I want to X-step Bruno. I don't want to have him continually age year by year, because that's what happened to Michael Connelly. He aged out his character. So I'm going to pile up my events right on top of each other so Bruno doesn't age out on me. That's what X-stepping means. Yeah, you X-step somebody. Yeah, you X on him, yeah.
Can you really answer the question? Why the
because it did happen 2 months after the recovery, and it adds more conflict. He's not at his best still. Can he do the job? Yeah. And he's constantly, in this book, he's constantly needing a nap because his body is still recovering.
Do the job he's not really paid for, doesn't have a badge to do, and probably shouldn't be doing. There you go. That's how you build tension. Okay, so we talked about the children. So, but Bruno has 13 kids back in Costa Rica, but he doesn't have any of his own yet, right?
No, and it was 12 until the publisher emailed me and said, "Hey, you're missing a kid." I said, "No, I'm not," because she made me do a spreadsheet on my kids. So I went back book by book into the spreadsheet, and then she actually found one that I missed, and I had to add Bosco from book 4.
Bosco.
Yeah, Bosco.
Well, I'm glad that she edited you with a much tighter attitude as me. So Marie's pregnant.
Yes.
The wife, Bruno's wife, Marie. And so this is going to be their first biological child.
I've been carrying that pregnancy for 2 books now. So,
Okay.
so the scoring comes out next February. Bam.
So have you mapped, I know the book's already. So,
Exactly 3 months.
So have you mapped out what that's going to mean in Bruno's life? Home child, which now makes 14.
The publisher continually is on me about motivation to get Bruno to leave Costa Rica to come back to Cape Verde, United States, where I'm more familiar and comfortable with. She says, you know, you can't have a high enough motivation for him to come back. So the Scorn is his last caper, the last time he goes back to the U.S., and then the Diabolical, which comes out a year from next February, is entirely set in Costa Rica. And then one after that, The Insidious, is also in Costa Rica. And all those are completed books.
Have you and your Casey wife been to Costa Rica?
Yes.
Are you going back? Or are you?
Yes.
When are you going back?
Probably first of next year, because we have too many trips lined up.
Get a little bit more of a report.
You're not exactly Johnny Carson.
All the people. Well, also, you've got LA Sheriff's Deputy Ellen.
LA County Sheriff's Detective.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, why did you choose to do that? There's some interesting tension between them. There's well, we won't give away too much, but she may not know exactly what Bruno really is. And there seems to be a little bit of Sexual tension.
I never noticed that, but
Bruno did.
oh,
Repeatedly says to him.
I needed a secondary and a tertiary plot line, and so that was one of them that I added to run parallel. So there's a plot line with the kidnapping, there's a plot line with mom and dad's in this one, right? Mom's in this one. And then there's the one with the deputy sheriff. And then so I see scene sequence down the spine of the book, which is the theme, and I jump back and forth as I go down. So that's one of the plot lines that I'm carrying.
So that was basically one of the questions. What fruition was. So it was a plot choice as opposed to a character.
Yes.
You mentioned mom.
I did.
Yeah. So, well, spoiler, the mom shows up in this book.
Yes.
And mom's never showed up.
He's never met her.
Yeah. So was that to add to the vulnerability, or was that a plot or character choice? Both.
I wanted to bring a counter against Bruno's stellar father. His father is righteous. He does everything, wonderfully, loyal to a fault. And I wanted to bring somebody who counters that. And his mom is exactly opposite of the father. So they play off of each other. And that's what I brought in the mother and had that backstory where she went to jail for murder.
So, having reinverted and breaking that
Drago.
So it kind of helped Bruno into this seems to be more upfront than other books. Is that something different for you? Was that something you think writing difficult, easy? Don't say the same.
No. Drago was in the second book. Once I sold the first book, I dropped what I was doing and I started writing a sequel because I knew the publisher would want a series. And Drago was fashioned after the most evil man I ever chased or followed. His name was James Lawless. And his name is really Lawless. And I'm sure you guys heard this story before, but he was tattooed from his chin all the way down to his toes, every square inch. He had all of it because I masqueraded as his parole officer in this case. And he kept saying, "You're not a parole officer." Long story, but on his pelvic area, he had a ram, and he had the ram's horns on his hips, and the snout of the ram was his penis, and it was all tattooed. The whole thing was tattooed.
Now, kids at home.
Oh. So, and when you make a hero, you can't make him perfect because he turns into a caricature, so you give him flaws. Well, the same thing with a bad guy. If he's so evil, he turns into a caricature. So I gave him a dab of humanity, and that was Marie sidling up to him in the second book. So in the third book, I just despise this guy so much, this James Lawless. And I shouldn't really be mentioning his name so much because I get sued, but he's in prison. He doesn't read. So, what was I saying? Oh, so in the third book, I killed him off. I killed Drago off because I didn't like him. I mean, I killed him in a very heinous manner. And then I turned the book in, and the publisher says, "No, we like Drago. You can't." So I had to rewrite the book and put Drago back in. So now I'm carrying James Lawless through all these books. Helen Hellinger was fashioned after a deputy that I knew, a very valiant deputy, and that little backstory about how she crashed into that gasoline truck is true. She crashed into this gasoline truck, and the gas was leaking on top of the car, and she took her gun out and was holding it to her head because of the flash. She was going to shoot herself. So I took that story and just folded it in. I try to use a lot of different things from my career into that. I don't know. Oh, you're saying about writing the books. I can't think of my own. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Not everybody has an exciting life. The stories. The rest of us have to work it. All right, so we do this.
But tell me what you want me to say.
So, given the, and I know it's not going to be watching that those stories, I really know that you long the life I love. But it's part about how you became a writer.
This is an old story. I used to be an avid reader, and I wanted to be a writer, but I'm still an avid reader. So I was, they gave me a gun and a badge and a fast car and said go chase crooks, and I probably would have done it if they hadn't paid me because it was such a fun job. But then they let me read books on the job when I was on surveillances, so it was best of both worlds. So I was out. Yeah, it's not in real life. Surveillances don't go. You can't have a single person surveillance and expect it to pull it off. And if you have a narcotico that's doing counter surveillance, then you need probably 8 cars in an airplane, and otherwise you're not going to be able to stay with them. But on a static surveillance, one person has the eye. One guy has the eye for like 2 hours, and you rotate it. Everybody else is laid off at a schoolyard or in a grocery store back parking lot, and people play softball. Some of the deputies play softball or basketball or whatever. I would read my novels. And I was down in my last novel. I was out in the middle of the Lucerne Valley. I'm watching the meth lab, and it's just nothing but sandy desert for hundreds, probably thousands of miles. And I was stuck because, the book was a sophomore effort his first book was an international bestseller, and the book was fantastic. I loved the first book, and that's why I thought this book was going to be a good book. What so often happens is an author will write for 10 or 15 years on one book and sell the book, and then he has a year to do the next one. And that's what happened to this one. This one, I was just shocked. And I was a captive audience, so I read the whole thing. And when I got done, I thought I could do better than this.
What's that writer was?
No.
I wish I'd been an international bestseller 40, 50 years ago when you started writing.
Oh, the gloves are off. So I quickly found that it was a good author makes it look easy. And I pinned my first 4 novels on the front seat of my cop car. Each book was 4 legal pads long. Yeah, that's
4 legal pads long is probably.
I don't know. Worked out to about 70,000 words though.
And then what happened? Start 'em?
Instantly. So then I printed them up and bound them like you're not supposed to, and took them to a writers' conference where I accosted a number of agents and sent it to one of the agents. Sent back, and so she's going to give me a rejection letter. She just wrote on the title page, "Learn how to write before resubmitting," in red ink. And then I realized, ooh, I might not know what I'm doing with this. So fast forward, 25 years later, and I'm on my 38th book when I sold the 36th book. After 156 rejections, I stopped counting at 156. It was in my 4th agent.
And that was
Called The Other Side of Forever, but the publisher thought it was too much romantic type title. So changed it to Disposables, yes.
so, disposables. Did they ask you for yes, a publisher, and they asked you
I'm not smart enough to go 2 words.
well, I think dialing it down to 1 word is a lot. So they asked you.
They said that they didn't like the title because it's too romantic. So they asked me for ideas, and I put it out to our writers group, and somebody in our writers group gave us the idea for Disposables. But she asked for 5 examples, and I sent the 5 in, and she picked the Disposables. So from then on, can you see it? Yeah, but the book 12 I just submitted, she said Scandalous is too close to another title, so I changed it to The Insidious. I got a
What's next?
heckler.
Thank you. So you want to talk about Wi-Fi?
The Y50 was fun. I was, my biggest mistake in my career was leaving detective and going to sergeant. I wanted to move up in rank a few levels for retirement reasons, and so I gave up all of my autonomy because they let me do whatever I wanted as a detective because the case started bringing in. So once I promoted to sergeant, now I was supervising people like me, and that was a nightmare. So, I did that. I did sergeant for a while and supervised a detective bureau and a jail for a while, 6 months, San Bernardino County Sheriff's. And then I went out to a patrol station, Yucca Valley, which was a unique place because there are some strange stories. I could tell you some really strange stories from Yucca Valley. And then I went back to Fontana, but then the undersheriff wanted me in internal affairs. I turned him down 3 times, and you don't turn down the undersheriff. So I finally went to internal affairs, stayed there a year, and I hated it. So one day I was looking on the computer, I was turning 50. I just randomly applied for Hawaii 50, and they called me for an interview. My wife used to live there, so we went back to live there for a while. And their idea of law enforcement was just totally counter to what I was used to. And I was in an office right across from the palace, just like on the real Hawaii 50, next to this historical banyan tree, and then right next to that is the Kamehameha statue, where all these buses come up and disembark all these people from Asia, and they get around the Kamehameha statue for a photo. And I would go to lunch every time, and I would stand up on this curb, and I would wave. So I'm in hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures. I photobombed every time I went to lunch. Yeah.
That's probably back in the day when you didn't edit your photos.
I don't know. So I come to work one day, and there's a fake Hawaii 50 car parked in my slot where I'm supposed to park. And at one time I was having a conversation with the victim, and they're having a fake shootout outside my door of the Hawaii 50. Yeah. Yeah, it was the first year. He's been dead a long time. But yeah.
But you haven't really given flavor.
You kind of lead me up to it, but I'm not sure. What?
You finished the book at your desk.
My wife told me not to say that anymore.
You're already getting the pension, but
No. They have a different, the classic example of their idea of law enforcement was my first case. I worked it up. It was an assault. And I got a arrest warrant. I go to my boss. I say, I'm going to kick this guy's door and take him to jail. He goes, whoa, we don't do that here. I go, what do you mean? He looks at his calendar. He goes, call him and tell him Thursday. Come in on Thursday. And they would have the bus waiting for him. And they'd load him up on the bus and drive him to jail and book him. I said, what kind of fun is that? But it's an island. So the crooks, where are they going to run? They don't have no place to run. Yeah. And another one, should I tell a deer story? Okay. So this one agent has a sister who's indigent and lives on Molokai. Molokai is the island with the most welfare recipients in the state of Hawaii, and mostly because there's not a lot of commerce there. There's only one single. So he asked me one day, we're going for an investigation. Would you check a box of canned goods? Because I'm going to get it to my sister after we get done. So yeah, I don't have no problem with that. So we can do our investigation. At the end, we drive to the end of this island. And it is just a beautiful, picturesque piece of property. There's St. Augustine that comes up to the asphalt that leads to a single frame construction shack. And it's so desiccated that the light rays are coming through the shack into the inside. On the other side is St. Augustine again. It goes out to white sand. And then there's just calm water out to the next island. It's a channel. I walk into the shack, and there's deer antlers interlocked all the way around the entire shack. Hundreds of deer antlers. So he goes and talking to his sister, and I'm talking to his sister's husband. I said, so you're a deer hunter? He goes, no, I can't afford a rifle or the ammunition. So I said, well, why do you get these deer? And he says, well, I just wait till I hear the gunshots and I go out and get my boat. This is going to be a good one. So the deer come down off of the Molokai, and I can see, I don't know, Maui, I think it was. It's always across the channel. And they think their depth perception's off. So they go in this big herd and they go start swimming to Maui, which there's no way they're going to swim that far. But yeah, so the Hawaiians, they're establishing a new tradition. They could jump in their boats and they're shooting the deer and pulling them in the boat. Well, he can't afford a gun or the bullets. So he says he waits till the deer realize that they can't make it. And they turn around and they're real tired. He grabs them by the antlers and drowns them and pulls them into the boat. So he's deer fishing.
Again, kids at home. Sorry. Glad I went down that.
Well, I asked permission from the heckler.
You still not doing the best for you. That's okay.
Which one are you looking for? Oh. Yeah, so when I was at Internal Affairs, I was juggling 28 to say 35 cases, and that's a lot of cases because they're very technical investigations. They're almost to the same level as a homicide because of all the rules from personnel and everything you've got to follow. And you're constantly getting advice from the on-site attorney and that kind of thing. So it was a lot of work, and I was always had my nose in the computer writing. I get to Hawaii, and they give me like 6 cases a week. So I do them real quick and turn them in. And my peers come to me and they said, hey, we love that you're doing these cases. Hold them up before you turn them in. And I said, I can't do that. So my boss comes to me and goes, my own boss comes to me and says, hey, you keep doing these cases. They're going to keep loading you up. And I said, bring them on. I'm bored. I want to do the cases. But they didn't want to, because I did a couple other things for them. I revamped their entire evidence system. And he thought that was working too hard. So I sat there and in my spare time listening to fake shootouts outside my door. I typed the first Bruno book. It was under 3 years. Yeah.
So back when we first met, you used to write.
That's what we're talking about.
No, you weren't working.
When I started writing, I was still working. I started writing in '89. So I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'd write for 3 hours before I go to work at 7 every day. I get up and I write the first thing of the day, but usually it's 4 or 5 hours in the first start of the day. Right? So sometimes I get up at 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 8, but I still write. I do 1,000 words minimum, and usually lately it's been 1,500 to 1,700 words a day, every day.
Writing process for a long time without
My agent was submitting every book I wrote.
the process changes.
Oh, definitely. My skill level has definitely improved. And
Process.
well, are you talking about? No, it's about the same. I go back, when I start every morning, I go back 20 pages and I read forward, I edit forward. Because, you sit down to write and your emotions might be different. You might be elated, you might be depressed. You don't want that tone translating into the book. I don't. So I go back 20 pages and read forward until I get to the end, and then I write the next 1,000 words. So I'm constantly going back and editing. I only write one manuscript. I don't do revisions. I write one thing all the way through and I'm done. That's when I say the end, I'm done. Every day's been revised. At least 5 times before I go.
So, what's next?
Here we go. I'm ahead of the publisher by 3 books. I think I'm till 2025 with Bruno. So I started a new series, and it's a memoir that I tried to write 4 times. I couldn't get it right. So I added a fictional story arc. And so the first half of the book is absolutely true. Everything happened just the way I wrote it, just the way it happened to me. My first 2 years as a cop. The last scene is fictional, and it sets up the story arc for the other half. It's called A Fearsome Moonlight Black, and it comes out in July. And I'm almost halfway done, I think, with Lonesome Blood Red Sun.
I was going to say, well, once you got the freedom to go more than the something, you wouldn't go out. That's a good part. So it's
I based the book on the theme of the book because I always have a theme and I have to have different, like I said, three plot lines. And so the theme of this book is it's not what the cop does in the job, it's what the job does to the cop. That's the theme. So I start out as a wide-eyed 20-year-old that had no idea what the real world was like, and I get thrown in my first year. I had 3 murders and fatal car accidents, and it was just a wild time.
that's July, so you got July.
Right, and that's the Scorned is next February. And then the one after that is the Diabolical, and the one after that is Insidious. I've been asked that a number of times, and I'm going to keep writing them until the publisher says I'm not taking them anymore. Sorry. Whoa. Give me a Snickers. Somebody give me a Snickers. David Putnam Books.com right there.
Okay, some questions from the audience. Did she leave her phone number? Shall I repeat it into the microphone? What's the hardest part about the writing process?
Selling the books. I have no problem writing them.
Publishing.
I have no problem writing them anymore. I mean, but it took me a long time to get to that place.
You gotta have the right stake.
Yes. And I love writing, so it's fun. Go ahead.
I expect it to go.
I continue to learn. I never stopped learning. And as I got, even the Bruno books, I look back and learn. I think I'm very wise to say, I finally decided I was a writer the morning I got up and Michael Collins sent me the first email and said I mentioned it. I know.
Is he? I've never heard the name before.
Yeah.
Do you work?
I Google every day. I want to get stuff right. Time periods, different kind of cars, locations. I use Google Maps. I get street names right, that kind of thing. That's the only research that I do.
Number of children that Bruno has.
Yeah, extradition treaties. We do extradition treaties, that kind of thing.
What about writing about the FBI? I know that you career some task force. I don't speak very highly of
I do not like that guy.
So, did you have to do any basically you're like FBI stuff? Did you kind of know, or did you talk to
I was actually on an FBI task force where I was sworn as a U.S. Marshal, and I worked out of their office. I saw how they worked, and I was amongst them. And I don't want to go into more of that when there's not enough time, but I can tell you some FBI stories that would, I couldn't understand why they didn't catch anybody. Is it 2-part or just one with the second? Okay. No. No. Let me answer this one. I don't send the books out after they're done. Well, sometimes Mike's read a lot of books. But right now I'm sending them out like halfway through and 3/4 of the way through just to see if it's working out. If it's working out the way I think it's working out.
Send them out to
Beta readers. Second half. Is Matt here? I follow 16 strict precepts in my writing, and these are things that I've developed from my own structure. And I went back and started rereading a couple of books from John Sanford, and I realized that his structure is exactly what I'm talking about. So I think that's probably where I subconsciously took it. His structure is just, he writes motivation, action, reaction. He does scene sequencing, and he's just right on the money. John Sanford. Well, okay, here's the deal. There's two worlds. There's a real world, and there's what the readers accept as their world. Like a clip. There's no such thing as a clip that goes in the gun. That's something that came out with movies and readers. It's a magazine. The only clip that goes in the gun is Enfield 303 and a brand. But the clip goes into an interior magazine. And then you shoot the last one, the clip pops out. So that's an example of it. But there are stories that happened to me where I was directly related to that I can't tell because in that reader's world, the readers aren't going to believe it. They're not going to buy it. Have you heard that Halloween story?
Yes. Ad nauseum, but it's a good story. It's a great story.
Okay.
Tell the Halloween story.
You said ad nauseum.
I love the Halloween story. I pulled the Halloween story out of you one day when you were reluctant. However, it's up to you.
Okay.
Try to hit it at our children.
This is a story. This actually happened. I had to call history to prove it. But it was one Halloween night. This guy was taking Soma, and he overdosed. What happens is when you get addicted, your tolerance builds up, and you keep taking more and more. At the same level of high. And I think we figured he did 30 exams that day. He's walking across his front yard on Halloween, and he drops dead in his front yard on Halloween. So all these trick-or-treaters are coming along, and they think that he's a fraud, and they're stepping over this dead guy, right? So the wife is a sketchy speed freak, and she's inside the house, and the door's open. It's long about midnight. She looks out, she's walking the street, and she sees that her husband fell out. And he does that to her police. She goes out, picks him by the boot, and drags him into the house by dragging him. He bangs his head and tears his shirt. And she gets in the house, and he's not responsive. So she goes and gets a thermometer and tries to stick it in his mouth. But he's got rigor mortis. He can't get the thermometer in his mouth. So she flips him over, pulls his pants down, and she sticks the thermometer in. Right? And that's like, pulls it out. Oh, he's cool. So she takes all his clothes off, and she gets a hairdryer. And she's trying to warm him up. So this deputy's driving by, and the door's still open, and he's driving by real slow because of the bad rain. And she sees him, she goes running out, Deputy, my husband's sick. The deputy calls her out, calls the medical aid. She goes running in, and there's a dead guy laying face down with a thermometer in his butt, and a lady trying to warm him up with the hairdryer. Now, you say, how do you put that in a book? You can't make that work any way you try.
Yes, you could.
Put it in your next one.
And you don't do it. Someone will.
That's right. Oh, Joseph Wamba. Oh, yeah, I read Wamba at a very young age. I love this book. So, sure, but, I read anything that's well written. I'll read young adult. I'm on a woman's fiction kick right now. I'm really enjoying some of these women's fiction. So, I think I take my learning from all the books I read. It's well written, I read. I have. I've tried writing fantasies, young adult. I never sold one, but as soon as I sold the Bruno series, I continually wrote those. I write 2 books a year, 2.5 books a year actually. So I write one contract book, and then I write what I call a hobby book. But right now I have a 3-book contract with a new one, so I'm writing 2 books a year, one for one. Well, I'm done with it. So I write 1 book per contract, and then I'm working on the hobby book. So the hobby book is going to be a mystery. It's not going to be a thriller structure. It's going to be a mystery structure.
Have you ever thought of sketchy speed freak romance?
It sounds fun, and I rarely, if ever, get writer's block because of the way I write. I go back and I read 20 pages back, and I work on Microsoft Word, so I have a living document, and I think of something while I'm writing. There's 5 things a scene needs to do to work, so I pull those. I put that in intentionally. And when I do put that in, I drop down and I list them. So when I come to them again, because I have to use them again, I put them in, and I drop down and delete them. So I never have writer's block because the story is tumbling on itself as it goes.
Okay, for people that aren't as structured and anal as Dave, I'll answer that writer's block question. I do get blocked sometimes, and generally something good comes out of it. I'll have itself in corners, but what I do is I know that even a blank pager, I do know that the more I write the book, the more I have an idea of what needs to be written. So when I'm stuck, because I write chronologically, if I get stuck in some spot, I will go ahead and write a scene that I know has to come sooner or later. And generally, I do this. I don't go back as far as Dave does when I write each day, but I read what I did the day before, revise every day. So from that, generally, you can find your way through. But yeah, I always try to write ahead if I have to, and then find my way. But clearly, it's never blocked.
Yeah, well, the scene sequencing helps me too. If I have 3 plots, I have to set up the transition for these other scenes.
It's basically things you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anybody else out here? Houston.
No.
What are they? Come on.
He's voting me because
I know.
he's in my writers group and he hits me every day.
They all begin with C's.
What?
There you go. These people want to learn.
I'll write it down and see the paper and speak it to you. Oh, I'll put it in there.
No, Dave, honestly, the people like you built it up. I mean, it must be incredible.
I don't remember. You got, voice is the big kahuna in writing. You see everything in writing. So sometimes I challenge myself. Am I getting the voice right? Am I getting the tone right? So that's when I send it out. I don't feel comfortable, but I'm always comfortable with the stories working, but I'm not necessarily sure that I have the tone. And there's 3 things that the voice has to do.
Are you still in the writers group? And you have beta reading?
Yes.
So yeah.
I'm not a writer's group anymore. No. But they kept asking me the same questions. Hey, what's the 5 things? 4 C's.
No, I found out.
So the question was, does my personal enjoyment reading ever enter into my work when I'm writing? And I would say no, because my characters have to have a defined voice, and I have to follow that voice more than the story. I mean, if it doesn't work for Bruno, Bruno wants to do something and it doesn't work for him, I don't make him do it. So it's all a matter of voice, and I don't think that I steal anybody's voice for Bruno. Bruno's got a very defined voice. The new book, the hobby book, I'm struggling with that right now. I've got what I call heavy notes for the hobby book, and the reason I haven't started it yet is because I have not determined her voice. No.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here for David Putnam's The Sinister. Thank you so much. And as a reminder for all you internet audience that are tuning in either now or in the future, because this is rewatchable, while supplies last, you can definitely get signed books of either David's or Matt's that we have in stock. Up until the end of today, we're going to give you a chance to get personalized books, so I can check the orders. Otherwise, you're just going to have to default to signed books. And thank you, everyone who did buy the books, because your support actually helps us continue doing wonderful authors event like this, especially after the heck of 2 years that we just had, right? So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for everyone that's out there. I'm sorry you can't enjoy any of the festive stuff that David's wife brought, the lovely bubbly things and otherwise other stuff. So I'll say adieu. All right. Thank you, everyone.